Of all the tragic stories in Hollywood, none have resonated as loudly and as long as that of Marilyn Monroe. Nearly 5 decades after her untimely death, Marilyn's heady cocktail of manicured beauty, cartoon sexuality, and childlike vulnerability remains as intoxicating as ever.
I think she truly is an international treasure, but she's certainly the United States national treasure.
With millions of independent young women still declaring her their idol, and the unending flow of documentaries and books about her life, her story still fascinates us like no other.
For a start, she's beautiful. Also, I think the main reason is that she died at the age of 36, and having died so young, and obviously she was an absolute icon, and she still will remain young.
Marilyn's all-too-short life began in the charity ward of the Los Angeles Hospital in 1926, a year after her mother had divorced her second husband. Never sure who her real father was, little Norma Jean Baker grew up believing that her dad may have been a salesman for RKO Pictures, where her mother worked as a film cutter. After her mother suffered a nervous breakdown, she was declared a ward of the state and spent much of her childhood in foster homes and orphanages. At the age of 16, she married her 21-year-old neighbor Jimmy Doherty to avoid being placed in another orphanage. By the time the marriage ended in 1946, she was poised to sign a contract with 20th Century Fox, dye her brown hair blonde, and change her name to Marilyn Monroe. But she was far from an overnight success. Her big breakthrough came playing a mentally unstable wife who plans to murder her husband in 1953's Niagara. But even as she was attempting to earn admiration for her acting talents, she was sealing her reputation as a ditzy, pliable boy toy by appearing nude in the centerfold of the first edition of Playboy. When quizzed in an interview about the shoot, she protested, "It's not true, I had nothing on. I had the radio on." Then there was the infamous sex film that allegedly depicted a young Marilyn performing sex acts with an unidentified man. In 2008, the New York businessman who paid $1.5 million for the 15-minute reel had no doubt that the woman in the film was Marilyn.
100%. You could see the mold on her face. You could see her distinct features she has. But she is not looking at the camera at any time. She doesn't look at the camera one time. Therefore, I don't know if she knew that she was being recorded. She may have not known. She does not look at the camera at any time.
Marilyn's brainless blow-up doll image wasn't helped by a series of vacuous comments at public appearances. Still, there was no questioning her comic timing. And her double act with Jane Russell in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes gave birth to her signature tune, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Taking his cue from the song, Marilyn's baseballer beau Joe DiMaggio got down on his knees, and they were married in February 1954, before jetting off to Japan on honeymoon. But within 2 weeks, Marilyn was back on duty flying to Korea to perform for the US troops. By the time she stepped onto the set of 7-Year Itch later that year, Marilyn's fame was at its peak, and the media feeding frenzy was reaching fever pitch. Director Billy Wilder capitalized on her pulling power by allowing the public to watch filming of the scene where Marilyn's skirt blows up around her waist. Joe was reportedly furious about the obvious exploitation, and the pair were seen yelling at each other in a theater lobby. After 274 days of marriage, Marilyn filed for divorce on the grounds of mental cruelty. By now, she'd also become deeply unhappy with being typecast as the tart with a heart, and she fled to New York to study at the Actors Studio. Desperate to earn respect, she hired Paula Strasberg as her acting coach and became engaged to playwright Arthur Miller. Not long after their marriage in 1956, the illustrious odd couple were introduced to Queen Elizabeth, the royal film performance of the Battle of the River Plate. Back in the US, Marilyn and Arthur were treated like royalty. And all of Marilyn's determination and hard work paid off with her performance in Bus Stop, which earned her a Golden Globe nomination and a New York Times proclamation that Marilyn Monroe had finally proved herself as an actress. But Marilyn still had plenty to prove to herself. In 1957, she set up Marilyn Monroe Productions with photographer Milton Green and set off to England to star opposite the doyenne of British theatre Laurence Olivier in The Prince and the Showgirl. Despite her deep-seated need to impress, her consistent lateness on set caused great tension between her and Larry, who also directed the film. Marilyn herself admitted to being invariably late for appointments and was quoted as joking, "I've tried to change my ways, but the things that make me late are either too strong or too pleasing," making light of what those around her believed to be a spiraling addiction to sleeping pills. Her legendary lateness also enraged Billy Wilder on the set of 1959's Some Like It Hot. Still, her performance as Sugar ended up earning her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in Musical or Comedy. But as in all the best stories, the moment of our heroine's greatest triumph also spelt the start of her fall from grace. The following year, during the filming of Let's Make Love, there were rumours she was having an affair with her French co-star Yves Montand. And by 1961, the wheels were falling off her marriage to writer Arthur Miller as they worked together on the film aptly named The Misfits. Director John Huston smelled trouble from the start.
Her great enemy was sleeplessness. Only God knows why she feared it so much. Perhaps it was simply that not to sleep meant losing her beauty, but I'm inclined to think that there was more to it than that. In any case, she fought her enemy, consciousness, with sedatives until she'd achieve not only sleep, but insensibility. Then stimulants would be employed to awaken her. This vicious circle played such havoc with her body that she had to be hospitalized for 10 days in the middle of the picture.
When Marilyn was admitted to the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Unit and placed in the ward for the most seriously disturbed, it was ex-husband Joe DiMaggio who came to the rescue and secured her release. She later joined him in Florida, and the paparazzi followed. By November of that year, it was all over between her and Arthur, who'd been carrying on an affair with photographer Inge Morath while making The Misfits. Within a month of their divorce, Arthur had married his mistress, and Marilyn continued her rapid descent into oblivion. A consistent no-show on the George Cukor comedy Something's Gotta Give, Marilyn was sacked and then reinstated at the insistence of co-star Dean Martin. But she did nothing to quell rumours of a dangerous affair with President John F. Kennedy when she skipped filming to sing him happy birthday. Ironically introduced to the stage by Peter Lawford as the late Marilyn Monroe, it was to be her last public appearance. 3 months later, on the morning of August the 5th, she was found dead by her housekeeper in her Brentwood home. 3 days before, she was due to remarry Joe DiMaggio. The autopsy revealed she died from an overdose of sleeping pills. The official cause was probable suicide, although debate continues to rage over a possible conspiracy involving JFK and his brother Bobby. For John Huston and other members of her inner circle, however, Marilyn's tragic death held no mystery.
A number of those who were close to her during the making of The Misfits thought it would be only a few short years before she died or went into an institution. An overdose of sleeping tablets has become synonymous with suicide.
Her body was claimed by the ever-faithful Joe and laid to rest at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery on August the 9th, 1962. But that sad farewell merely marked the end of the very first chapter in the legend of Marilyn Monroe. Since her death half a century ago, Marilyn Monroe lives on as an American icon.
I think she has so much allure. In America, we like underdogs. We root for underdogs. We like them to win. Marilyn was always an underdog. We love the underdog to win.
And these days, she's not just admired by men.
Marilyn epitomized beauty, and she had an appeal not only for men, which of course that's, we would say would be quite obvious, but she also appealed to women as well. And she had a way about her that people wanted to just help her. And women, again, found her attractive, not in a sexual way, but in a way of caring. And it made it a universal appeal that holds up to this day.
In the 21st century, she's idolized and imitated by millions of women who weren't even born while Marilyn was alive.
I love to look like her, I love to dress like her, and I love to act like her. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
What girl wouldn't?
She's like the American Idol.
Diamonds definitely are a girl's best friend.
Her adoring public's desperate attempts to keep the spirit of their idol alive have spawned a lookalike industry and scores of competitions to find the best Marilyn Monroe impersonator. And it's not just the general public who refuse to let her go. Marilyn's influence on art and popular culture is still felt as strongly today as it was back in her 1950s heyday. One of the first artists to pay posthumous tribute to the tragic siren was Mr. Pop Art himself, Andy Warhol. Some critics have suggested that Warhol may have identified with Marilyn's attempts to rid herself of the dumb blonde stereotype and be taken seriously as an artist. Whatever the reason behind his fascination, his series of 10 screen prints remains some of the most celebrated pieces in pop art portraiture. But Warhol wasn't the only artist of the period to choose Marilyn Monroe as his muse. She also inspired works by the likes of Roy Lichtenstein, Robert Rauschenberg, and Alan D'Arcangelo. A recent exhibition brought a collection of Marilyn-inspired pop artworks together in one space.
We've done something rather special. We've reunited a group of portraits of Marilyn by Andy Warhol, Richard Hamilton, Alan D'Arcangelo, and an extraordinary sculpture by Klaus Oldenburg. Now, these pieces were first seen together in 1967 in New York at the Sidney Janis Gallery in a tribute exhibition to Marilyn Monroe. What we've done is to reunite these works, but also to look at them in a slightly different way.
However, such attempts to capture and preserve her image form only a small part of the rich legacy that continues to inspire the lives and work of performers to this day. Over recent years, singers like Gwen Stefani and Britney Spears have borrowed strongly from aspects of Marilyn Monroe's overtly sexual blonde bombshell image. Throughout her 30-year career, Madonna has paid regular tribute to her idol. The dyed blonde hair, bright red lipstick, and voluptuous image of her earlier incarnations sparked inevitable comparisons between her and Marilyn. And her 80s hit Material Girl was an obvious homage to Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Her infamous sex book of 1992 also cast minds back to the controversial nude photos taken of Marilyn before her breakthrough as an actress. Another singing star who owes the original Material Girl a huge debt of gratitude is Kylie Minogue. The blow-up doll image and breathy singing style of the pop princess have left critics in no doubt as to where she looks for inspiration. In fact, she was invited to recreate the scene from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, in which Marilyn first crooned Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, as part of the opening celebrations for Fox Studios in Australia. But perhaps the latter-day celebrity who has invited the most direct comparisons with Marilyn Monroe is the late Anna Nicole Smith. Like her heroine, the former glamour model had an incredibly tough start in life. Born Vicki Lynn Hogan to an abusive mother in Texas in 1967, Anna was allegedly molested and raped by her stepfather from the age of 9. Like Marilyn, she threw herself into an early marriage to escape her traumatic home life, and finally found her way into glamour modeling and acting.
She didn't quite have the charm and the universal appeal of Marilyn Monroe, but you cannot deny the parallels in the two of them. I mean, from their fake names to their fake blonde hair to their nudity in Playboy magazine to their untimely deaths in their 30s.
Playboy founder Hugh Hefner also found her similarities to Marilyn Monroe striking.
She was one of those who loved being in front of the camera and came alive in front of the camera. And you know, there was very clearly a Marilyn Monroe quality about her, and that aspiration was very clear from the very beginning. She talked about Marilyn Monroe all the time, and when she became Playmate of the Year for at that press party, she was doing a lot of Marilyn Monroe poses.
Like Marilyn, she relied heavily on her sexual assets to move up in the world. While working in a strip club in Houston, she caught the lustful eye of oil billionaire J. Howard Marshall. The 63-year age difference proved no barrier to their relationship, although it did provide plenty of fuel for detractors who accused the 26-year-old Anna of being a gold digger.
I'm not a gold digger. I could have married him a week after we met. I didn't.
Like the best reality stars out there, she capitalized on her moments back in '93, '94 when she was in Playboy, when she was a guest model, and of course when she married the billionaire, and just parlayed those into a decade-plus love affair with the media.
In defense of their marriage, which lasted the remaining 13 months of Marshall's life, Anna maintained that they had lots of sex, and although he was not able to satisfy her, she had certainly put a smile on his face. But after his death, she became embroiled in a legal battle of Dickensian proportions that stalled her career. Left out of Marshall's will, she went head-to-head with his son, suing for half of the $1.6 billion fortune she claimed Marshall had promised her. Pouting and posing for the paparazzi, Anna's startling weight gain and erratic behavior made her an easy target for late-night comedy shows. But instead of running from ridicule, she welcomed it with open arms, signing up for her own reality TV show, The Anna Nicole Show. From then on, her public appearances were testament to her loosening grip on reality. Stumbling out of limousines and swaying along the red carpet, she made the paparazzi delighted to document her decline into prescription drug oblivion. Anna kept on smiling, but those close to her had a sense of foreboding.
And I don't want to divulge any kind of intimate information, but the only thing I can say is that she wasn't happy. And she tried to look happy in front of the cameras for everyone, but she wasn't very happy.
And her cataclysmic closing chapter bequeathed more headline-grabbing tragedy than the media could have dreamed of. 3 days after giving birth to a daughter in September 2006, she woke up to find her 20-year-old son dead from a methadone and Zoloft overdose in her hospital bedroom. Then, on the afternoon of February the 8th, 2007, she was found dead by her bodyguard in room 607 of the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel in Florida. Despite efforts to revive her, she was dead on arrival at the hospital. The pathology report revealed that she had died of combined drug intoxication, in which sleeping medication chloral hydrate was the major culprit. In all, 11 prescription drugs were found in her system. Her tragic exit at the age of 39, conjuring up one last comparison with her childhood idol.
We can't forget that Marilyn Monroe's death was brought on by an overdose of pills.
As well as bequeathing a rich source of inspiration to artists and performers, Marilyn Monroe continues to generate millions of dollars worth of income for auction houses and galleries. Back in 1988, auctioneers in London had managed to get their hands on the blouse that Marilyn had worn in her 1956 film Bus Stop. It ended up being snapped up by a property developer who hoped it would serve as a lucky charm to help launch his 16-year-old daughter into a successful career in show business. 20 years later, advances in technology allowed fans from around the world to jump online and bid for Marilyn's personal diary from the year before she died.
It's almost like a diary of her personal and professional schedule for that year. And there's about a month that it's completely blank in the book, and it's when she was hospitalized at the psychiatric institution. So right when she gets out, she gets her underarms waxed, she goes to the dentist, all the maintenance, and there's a lot of appointments in there of her going to Carnegie Hall to see Judy Garland perform. So it's really a fascinating piece of history.
But those who just like to look will find no shortage of new books boasting previously unseen pictures that reveal yet another side to their heroine. Then, of course, there are the countless exhibitions of photos and artwork that claim to capture even more of the real Marilyn Monroe.
I do believe there's something here for everyone to really get to know her. At least I'm sure a lot of people feel they know her in some way. I think they'll know her a lot better after they see this exhibition.
One of the largest collections, simply entitled Marilyn Monroe the Exhibit, brought together the treasures of 3 organizations in an attempt to tell the story that would reveal the impact of Marilyn Monroe as a legendary movie star, pop star, celebrity, and international icon. Featuring 350 objects, the exhibition grouped her life and legacy into 6 major themes.
And the first salon is what we call Intimate Marilyn, and that has to do with all of Marilyn's lingerie, bathing suits, all of her cosmetics, and when I say all that I've collected. The second salon is Glamorous Marilyn, and you'll see all of the gowns, the jewelry, what I would call the bling of Marilyn, and boy, there is a lot of bling in that particular salon.
A highlight of the exhibition focused on her personal life, including her lifelong love affair with Joe DiMaggio.
The fourth salon is the love story. We're sitting in this one, and it's Marilyn and Joe. And this is where it's a combination of Joe's things and Marilyn's. But it is the things, as I look around here, gifts that Marilyn gave to Joe or gifts that Joe gave to Marilyn.
But perhaps the exhibition that truly evoked the poignancy of Marilyn's story was one that placed her side by side with fellow American icon Elvis Presley and brought home the tragedy of 2 stars that burned too bright to last.
They had a real star quality, some sort of undefinable thing that makes them incredible. I think you take that away and it just puts a smile on your face and just makes you think, God, it's such a shame they died so young.